Okay. All right. We're live. We got to let it breathe just for a few moments only while we bring on the Facebookers and we bring on the Instagrammers. And then we got this tribe under one tent. It's going to be dope. Can't wait. And we're good. Welcome in, everybody. It's the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen, and with me is my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, man, as is often the case during the season, a lot has happened since we were in between our Monday night show and our Thursday night show. So lots to get into. But first thing I wanted to hear from you, and you and I have not discussed this off camera. Yeah, that Facebook, I got to figure out why that other Facebook page keeps having this problem. Um, your gut reaction to the devastating news of Alex Singleton, a boss, dude, tears his ACL on that Brandon Jones interception play, right? Which was relatively early in the game, played 100% defensive snaps, finished the game, and then was like, locker room, I'm a little bit sore, but he's done for the season. Your gut reaction, bro.
And finished as the Broncos' leading tackler in the game as well. I've come around to really appreciate Alex Singleton. I wasn't the biggest fan of his. I still think he's a limited player, but the leadership he brings, the intensity he brings, the run support he brings to the defense, it's going to be tough to replace him. Even, VJ talked about it today. PS2 talked about it. Sean Payton talked about it. If only because, Chad, where do you go from here? Sternad or Christian Welch, or do you call up Lavelle Bailey, or do you throw in Quan Alexander, who you just signed, into a starting role? It's a precarious spot, if only because it wasn't their strongest position to begin with, opposite Cody Barton. I feel bad for him.
I do too, man. It's tough. They shucked, they jived, whatever you want to call it. They're rolling with those punches, bringing in Quan, bringing in Cunningham. What are your thoughts on those guys? Like a little bit, you had the write-up for us yesterday. What are your thoughts on them being signed to the practice squad? Does that give you any encouragement moving forward?
Well, if this was like 2018, I'd feel a lot better. They're older players. I think they're a little past their prime, but they could still help out in a complementary role. You don't have, you're not going to get Singleton snaps from them at an elite level, but Quan Alexander, for example, last season with the Steelers, I mean, he was good in pass coverage. He had a bunch of different stats in 9 games. He did tear his Achilles, though, in November. He's 30 years old. It's something to keep in mind. Cunningham's been around, I think, like 7 years. Played for the Eagles, played for the Titans. He has a bunch of starts under his belt. So I think once they get up to speed, they can replicate Singleton's production, but you can't replicate his leadership, Chad, and filling that captain void that he had.
Yeah, it's like Vance Joseph talked about today at the podium. We can get into that, some of his remarks in specificity, but he's like, look, it just means that other guys are going to have to step up, and he specifically named Pat Surtain that he's going to have to, quote, do better. Now, what exactly he meant by that, I'm not sure, Zack, because he wasn't pressed on the comment, but it's going to take kind of a collective effort. But I'll say this, we were in the stadium nearly 2 weeks ago for the meet and greet game, and Scott and I and my son, we were watching the game together, and MHH was kind of there in little like segments. Some of us were over here, some of us were over there, some of us were over there, but that's who was sitting together. And I got to admit, Zack, I was mostly impressed in person watching Christian Welch. All right. So Vance Joseph got the question today about Justin Sternad. Is that the next man up? Where does he fit in here? We can get into that. But do you think, Zack, he at all factors into the solution here in terms of making up for the loss of Singleton?
We saw that how it goes with Sternad as the starter, Chad. We were excited about him in, what was it, like 2020 or whatever, 2021, and he just didn't really cut the mustard. I still want someone more athletic, and ideally Quan Alexander is that athletic pass coverage inside linebacker, but again, you worry about the Achilles and what he could offer at age 30 now.
The cool thing is, too, he does have experience with Peyton Alexander, that is.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. But here is what VJ said when asked specifically whether he foresees Sternad playing more defensive snaps or defensive snaps, actually, period, this season. Quote, I can't speak to how much he's played, but I can speak to he's made our team. Thanks, coach. He's been a valuable part of our team for the 2 years I've been here. It's NFL football where every guy in the locker room is capable of doing the job. You don't keep guys on the roster who can't play in NFL games. Football is the ultimate team sport. So I have a lot of confidence in Justin and all those guys in that room to help us win the game. Just be 1/11th and do their jobs. That's what the game calls for. I'm not overly worried. Da 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 da. So there's your deep thoughts from VJ on Sternad today, Zach.
Bunch of cliches. I mean, I would expect nothing less from V. I actually like Bo Nix's answer better yesterday, Chad. He said offensively, we have to do better and we have to pick up the slack. So it's at least a little more insightful than a bunch of canned answers.
Yes, sir. Okay, let's say some hellos. Guys, what's up? We got the Papa Bear checking in early with a super chat. Thank you, bro. Love you. And by the way, guys, apologies for being so late. Zach and I were always a little bit tardy, but today being so late, my fault, technical difficulty. So thank you for your patience, gang. The Papa Bear says, good evening, Broncos country. Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. Hashtag God bless the USA, 10-7, Buckham ×3, MHH for life, Denver Broncos for life, SEAL Team Knicks. And he's saying it's Nixon to get interesting. Yes, it is, Zach. And look, no team goes the whole season without a little injury adversity. So Sam Bam saying, hey, and thank you, Sam. Good to see you, bro. Evening, guys. The Jets are going to be a tough matchup, but I think the Broncos can give a good battle. After this week, the schedule gets lighter, I feel, and Knicks is only going to get better. Go Broncos. Zach, your thoughts, because I agree with that.
Does it get lighter, though? You have 2 divisional games, and then you have a short week against the Saints at New Orleans. We saw how good they're playing so far, and then there's a bunch of other tough games. It's a pretty brutal schedule throughout, Sam, but I will say, if they play anywhere close to as consistent in all phases as they played on Sunday against the Buccaneers, they will hang with anyone this season. And, you know, the Papa Bears prediction of 10-7 could very well still come true.
Indeed. Whoa.
Wow.
Holy smokes. Look, I had hair, and then Michaela dropped that from the top. It goes.
Michaela. Thank you, Michaela.
Michaela, love you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Helping us keep the lights on. Moss Def. I don't know what we would do without you. This is why you're a Mount Rushmore Super Chat superstar. Your face is right up there. Boom. Blasted out of the crust of Mile High, and we etched it. So, love you. She says, I have no idea who can possibly take over as a leader for the defense. Maybe Cooper or Brandon Jones. They strike me as leaders. Opinions. Interesting. I'm not sure about quite yet whether Brandon Jones is of the leadership, has the makings of a varsity. Sorry, I was gonna make a junior soprano. What is it, Zach? He doesn't have
the makings of a varsity athlete.
Because anytime I hear the makings of that, I think of that. But anyway, I'm not sure Brandon Jones has the makings of a leader. I'm saying that because I don't know. I haven't heard anything. Haven't really heard much from him speaking and whatnot. But Zach, what are your thoughts here for Michaela on leadership void? Who steps in and fills that vacuum?
Brandon Jones, if he can just lead by example, I mean, if he can force 2 turnovers every game, that'd be A-okay with me. Personality-wise, I don't know a lot about Cooper. I know that his teammates love him. I know the coaching staff loves him. I don't know if you want him or if he can even be that fiery leader. Another name that comes to mind we always talk about, Chad, is PS2. He's the highly paid quarter in the NFL. He's the best player on the team. You like him to be a little more vocal and have that Aqib Talib or Chris Harris mentality. Another guy maybe who is a literal leader in the box score for the Broncos is Zach Allen. He's having an all-pro season, Chad. I mean, pressures, quarterback hurries, sacks for an interior defensive lineman. He is playing excellent football. Highly paid guy, came over with VJ. I'd like to see him step up and fill that void as well.
What about maybe PJ Locke, the feisty, hard-hitting, physical kind of strong safety? They've kind of been rotating those two. Yeah. It's hard to say, like in the days of, say the no-fly zone where it was clear who was the free safety, who was the strong. The way VJ's been doing it, I guess Brandon Jones is probably more the free safety when you talk about this very heavy cover one looks, the single high safety that the Broncos have been running, which, by the way, Nick Kendall had a great article today breaking down some of the statistical distinctions of this early Broncos defense, which has really helped them stay in each and every game, and of course winning last week, holding Baker Mayfield to just 7 points. So, but yes, Michaela, we got to come up with a solution, and I think this is one of those things where, not to once again quote my boy Nick, but something he says often is, hey, look, we'll know a lot more 8 weeks into the season, and I'd like to. It's just such a young roster overall, Zach, on both sides of the ball. I know we're not the youngest roster, but it's such a young roster that you really just need them to be tested with time on task and see what cream kind of rises to the top.
They're also not decorated at all. Usually your leaders are the most decorated guys, the Pro Bowlers, the All Pros. So except for PS2, who really do they have? That's why
Right.
you want to see him step up. That's why I mentioned Zach Allen, who's playing at an All-Pro, Pro Bowl level. But I think you're right, Nick's right. Let the season play out a little longer, and I think those things will naturally work themselves out.
Who is though, Eric? Good to see you, big dog. Thank you for the stars on Facebook. C Chang says, well, so who is the next man up? Cody Barton has been a starter, Zach, so that's not going to change. But it seems to me out of the gates, it's Christian Welch. It doesn't sound like it's going to be Justin Sternad, and that kind of meets the eye test based on what we saw in person anyway, against the Steelers, and then also again Tampa Bay. So I would have to say for now, I think out of the gates, being such a quick turnaround, days removed from him being hurt, probably Christian Welch initially.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I could see Quan getting a few limited bites at the apple, if only because he's such a veteran. How hard could it be to learn the defense? And his assignment on Sunday would be, you see Breece Hall, go tackle him. You see Braylon Allen, go tackle him. You see anyone on that offense, go get after him, and including Aaron Rodgers. So I think you're right, Chad. It's going to be Christian Welch, but eventually they did pick up Quan for a reason.
Yeah. Just might take him a week or so, maybe a week or two to kind of get up to speed. But we got Smouse in the house, Unique Prepping, another one of our longtime Super Chat superstars, checking in on Super Chat. Thank you, brother. Saying, getting ready for a live about gardening. Okay. Just want to show MHH some love. Proud of Bo. Yes, indeed. And we're proud of you, Zachary, by the way. You keep crushing it on your channel and doing your thing and talking about how to be prepared, I'm sure. Gardening, getting your garden game going. That's something I'm interested in, gardening. So learning more about that, but that's cool. And yeah, proud of Bo fighting through early adversity, Zach. I mean, think about how many rookies after. It's not just that the Broncos, Zach, started 0-2, right? It's the complexion of how those games shook out and just how woeful. I mean, the win notwithstanding, Bo is still yet to have thrown his first NFL touchdown pass in the regular season. So that illustrates it's been a tough road to hoe for the rookie out of Oregon, but a lot of rookies, they go into a shell, and it's a shell that many of them, Zach, don't ever emerge from. But it was most encouraging thing. It wasn't just, Zach, that Bo Nix was showing signs of progress, but it's that came in the face of the risk of he didn't go into the shell. That's promising.
I don't want to overstate one game, but what a tough 2 games before that. I mean, at Seattle facing that defense, then you come home for the home opener, a lot of nerves in that game, and you face the Steelers defense, arguably the best in the NFL. So I give Bo Nix a lot of credit and we talked about this in the preseason, always bouncing back, having that resiliency, looking like a veteran between the eyeballs, Chad, having that mental acuity and being able to handle the game. The situation is not too big for him. And I think, as we saw last week, the game is even incrementally starting to slow down a little bit.
Indeed. I'm proud of him too, though, Zachary. So good to see you, big dog. Thank you again for the super chat. George Fox checking in. What's up, bro? He says, good evening, guys. Don't know how long I can stay on the line. The hurricane just went by Fort Myers, Florida. Dang. So we're in high winds tonight. Hopefully we have a great defense this week when we play the Jets. Broncos for life. Hit the thumbs up, guys. Well, hey, if you are in the southeast part of our nation, guys, thoughts and prayers up. And stay safe, and hopefully we get to hear back from you on how things went for you, George, on the next stream on Sunday. So stay safe, big dog.
Yeah, it's why I get out of Florida, partly, Chad, because the hurricanes do not stop until November. So, George, you're in my thoughts and prayers. I saw it's a Category 4 now. It's pretty life-threatening. So my thoughts are with everyone that could be affected by that storm. It's not fun.
Brutal. The Ronk checking in. Good evening, Chad and Zach on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Go Bo Broncos. Heck yeah, big dog. Good to see you, my friend. Really stoked to see you. Zach, we started late. Let's get to the head-to-head, shall we? And then we can just kind of see where we're at time-wise. So as you guys know, now that we are officially a few weeks now into whoops, that's not the right one. There it is. Now that we are officially into the season, we have on Thursday night the head-to-head where we examine the Broncos relative to, and Zach, now I'm off of the StreamYard side, so you'll have to tell me if there's anything I miss here. So I'm just chilling on the sheet. But this is the head-to-head comparison, okay? Green signifies a top 10 statistical ranking. Red is bottom 10, and if it's black, it's in the middle, right? On one hand, you have the Broncos at 1-2, the Jets at 2-1. First off, the Broncos, Zach, are tied for 8th in the turnover margin. This was a number, I haven't pre-verified this, but because I've never had to do that before, right? Like this is stuff that's vetted and done and researched by Broncos PR. We've noticed a few discrepancies this year, but I'm just going to go off it. Turnover margin, Zach, the Broncos are tied for 8th in the NFL, which they're +4. That means they've taken the ball away 4 times more than they've given it, which, again, I don't know how that could be because Bo alone has 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if Bo alone has 4, we had a fumble last week. Javonte, that's 5. I'm sure I'm even missing another one. How many takeaways? We don't have 9 takeaways. So that can't be, I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, once again, I'm doubting it. I got to skip. So let's at least look at time of possession. 15th are the Broncos, Zach. The Jets are 12th. And then when we look at these offenses, again, you got to remember this is a Jets offense now quarterbacked by a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. They're 3rd in net yards per game with 310. The Broncos are only 18 yards behind them, but it actually puts them in the bottom 3rd at 23. The Jets, you can see points per game. They're about middle of the pack. Broncos, points per game, they're bottom 3rd at 17.3. Rushing, the Jets are average. Broncos are average. Passing, the Jets are just outside the top 10. The Broncos are barely staying out of the bottom 10. But look, it's hard to get Aaron Rodgers to turn the ball over, period. End of story. 1 interception, 1 fumble loss for the Jets, so only 2 giveaways. The Broncos, according to this math, have 6. But here's where it starts to look up. Bo Nix, just like the advanced analytics, Zach, that the Broncos ran on him and all the 2024 first-round quarterback prospects, he doesn't take sacks, man. He's hard to sack. So with only 4 on the season, 2 of which were self-sacks that Bo Nix, like 2 years from now, that those sacks wouldn't even happen. But the Rodgers only been sacked 5 times. But these are the stats that still, like even last week, Zach, where we saw the offense take some big steps forward, they still suck bad on 3rd down in the final analysis. Most of it came from 2nd and 3rd quarter and beyond. And then they were 50% last week in the red zone against the Bucs. So they moved up a little bit in red zone percentage, but they're still like only 2 teams worse than Denver in the red zone. Meanwhile, Zach, look at this. Jets 1st on 3rd down, tied for 3rd in red zone percentage.
I did a quick Google search on the Broncos. It says that they're -2 in turnover differential. So we'll have to just go with that, I guess.
I'll have to email them, and I hate to be that guy, but I guess I will.
But, where was this, the efficiency when Hackett was the Broncos head coach and not the Jets offensive coordinator? It's impressive what a Hall of Fame quarterback can do for you. They also have a ton of talent on that offense with Garrett Wilson. I mentioned Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, that 1-2 punch. Tyler Conklin, the tight end, can do some damage. Mike Williams they have coming back to action now. So it's not surprising they look good for now after 3 games.
Yeah, so here's your Jets offensive stats. Hall has 170 rush yards. As it stands, Bo Nix is the Broncos' leading rusher, Zach. How freaking sad is that? It's highly emblematic of the struggles this offense has had early on. I mean, we're talking Pookie averaging 1.5 to 2 yards per carry each game. Jalil, he gives you a little more twitch than that, but not much better in terms of average. That's why we got to see Tyler Bidet. It's official. Bidet worked more into the game plan. But as you see here, Wilson, I mean, not crazy passing stats so far. I mean, even Rodgers, he's got 624 pass yards, Zach, to Nix's 600. And we know Nix hasn't exactly been lighting it up.
I was going to say it's depressing that he's the leading rusher, but it's also exciting what he can do with his legs, Chad, as we saw with that scramble last week. So, Bo Nix is right on schedule. The Broncos running game, definitely not. And if they want to offset the Jets pass rush, which Sean Payton talked about today, this would be such a good week to finally get that running game going, Chad. It really, really would.
All right, let's have a look at these defenses. And this is where things really start to kind of even out and get interesting, because the Broncos have the third best defense in net yards allowed per game. The Jets are the seventh best. When it comes to points per game, the Broncos are only allowing 15.3, which is the sixth best. And the Jets are right behind them, 17.3, good for eighth. The Broncos and the Jets, they're about sixes in terms of their rushing defense rankings, respectively. Both of them are in the high 20s, so middle of the pack. Passing, though, look at this. Your Denver Broncos, Zach, 133 yards per game through the air. That's second. Jets, though, 150, so slightly less stingy, but still very, very stingy. That's good for fourth. Interceptions, the Broncos have 2, Jets have 1. Fumble recoveries, Broncos 2, Jets 2, both tied for second. Takeaways overall, the Broncos have 4. So that theme so far, Zach, has continued into 2024, which is encouraging. The sacks, now this was a statistic, I got to be honest, Zach, was looking a little bit sorry before the Tampa game. But when you get 7 in a single game, it starts to kind of pad the stats, so to speak, puts the Broncos at 11 for the year, tied for 5th, whereas the Jets, they get after you, dude. 14 sacks so far as a defense, tied for 2nd. Broncos have the 8th best third down defense, the 12th best red zone defense, so that shouldn't be green, that should be black. We're catching them slipping left and right here, Zach. I hate it, but and this should be yeah, that's correct, but still it's missing just little typos. The editor in me takes exception. But anyway, third down, the Jets are middle of the pack. Red zone, though, they're tied for 4th, Zach.
I'm going to boil it down very simply. I believe whoever can establish the run better on offense is going to win this game. Look at right there, rushing defense. I mentioned the Jets. They're susceptible 22nd. The Broncos are 21st. The Broncos and Jets defenses, God bless them, are both good at getting after the quarterback, creating havoc, sacks. They stiffen up in the red zone. So whoever can establish the run, I think will have the best chance to win this game. And right now, unfortunately, Chad, that would point toward the Jets ground game.
We take a quick gander at special teams, where the Broncos punt return average 4 has officially slipped out of the top 10. So Marvin Mims, not very many opportunities as a kick returner, but you do get the punt return opportunities. There hasn't been much doing there, so he's officially slipped out of the top 10. But Riley Dixon is still actually doing quite well at punting, and we know your boy Will Lutz just earned AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. He's kicked 100%, both field goals and extra points, which is great. And then over here, though, look at this. Nothing much positive, Zach, for New York's special teams. I mean, how much you want to read into that, I'm not sure, but we do know how much of an asset it can be when your special teams, you get that third phase compliment, man. It can be the difference in these minimal margin for error games.
And also when you have Mike Westhoff overseeing the operation, and this will be a revenge game for Mike Westhoff. For many, many years in the past, he was the Jets special teams coordinator. Now he runs the Broncos unit. And Chad, after the ghosts of Tom McMahon and Brock Olivo and Dwayne Stukes, I'm so happy with the Broncos special teams the last couple seasons.
Man, my psyche has been trying to bury those names, and you just brought them back. And for a second, I felt like little flashes of trauma, but I'm okay. I'm already over it.
I have to suffer. You're suffering too.
22 Janos. That's what it was. 22 Janos.
Good old Brock.
All right. Penalties, these guys are pretty close. Well, the Jets aren't getting their opponents to break character, so to speak. They have the fifth fewest opposing, or sixth fewest, fifth fewest opponent penalties. Broncos are right up there. But anyway, that's your head to head for this week, gang. Hope it was edifying and illuminating, but it does kind of show us that, Zach, in many ways, I would say these teams are pretty evenly matched. The difference here is going to be the wily 40-year-old veteran quarterback versus the young, energetic, upstart rookie first rounder at 24-year-old Bo Nix.
I just hope the game becomes about Aaron Rodgers. I hope the Broncos force Aaron Rodgers to beat them, because that would mean they shut down Breece Hall and they shut down Braylon Allen. They shut down that running game. What I've seen on Jets tape the first few weeks, Rodgers still has the accuracy, Chad. He's still a future Hall of Famer for a reason, but it's a lot of short game passing, a lot of quick game passing. If you can clog the lanes and make him uncomfortable and shut down the rushing attack, number one, you have a really good chance of winning on defense.
I'm glad to hear people still dig the head-to-head. I mean, usually we don't make it the prime focus of the show, but something we get to. And Pearl, I know you've always liked that part of the show, so glad to hear it. Cody, what's up, big dog? Are they counting the safeties as takeaways? No, that doesn't count in traditionally. That I'm aware, Mr. Producer, that you don't count safeties as a takeaway. So. No, I just think it's little things that they're missing. Maybe they have a new intern or something in PR that's missing this stuff. So, yes, still not enough. Just a typo. Jets are +1 on turnovers. Broncos are -2. And you got to remember that a big chunk of that is the Bo Nix interceptions. So, if you can continue to cut those out and the Broncos defense can continue to take the ball away, that's going to start to balance itself out. So, okay. Guys, as I mentioned tonight, we got to keep it a little bit tight because we were unfortunately starting so late. So I'm going to take a glance here, Zach, at the chat and see if there's anything specific we haven't touched on already. When will Bo Nix get his first touchdown? When will Bo Nix get his first touchdown pass? So these are like two questions, really, even if he's not meaning it. When will that first touchdown pass come, Zach, and to whom?
I think it comes Sunday, and only because I'm manifesting it coming in front of Nathaniel Hackett and him being forced to watch it from the sideline. Who? I'm going to say it's a swing pass to Javonte or Jaleel or Tyler Bidet. That's my first attempt with the pronunciation, Chad. Bidet. So I think it goes on a swing route to a running back near the goal line for 6.
By the way, you want to hear something interesting on that front? Okay, credit to our friend Zach Stevens over at DNVR. But this is so the Broncos, in their pronunciation guide, pronouncing it Baydee, Baydee, phonetically, the hooked on phonics thing. All right. That's because that's how he said his name. It's recent that he decided to change the pronunciation of his name. So here's what he told Stevens, quote, "It's Bidet. Let's get it out of the way," and then kind of pressed on it, going, "Well, how come that, forever you've been referred to as Beatty? What changed?" And he said, I actually changed it myself. There's some other things going on, some family things that I'll talk about later on, but right now I'm just trying to focus on football now. So, Zach, that's why there was some confusion on it, is he just decided like last week or something to change the pronunciation of his name. So I'm Chad Jensen. Okay, from now on, that's how you pronounce my name, Jensen. I'm going to go back I don't know. I'm sure there's some French ancestry if you go back far enough. I don't know. I'm goofing here, but yeah. So that explains it.
I'm going to just make it simple like usual and call him TB28 or just TB.
Yeah,
or just Tyler Badass.
Yeah, I like it. I dig it.
Or RB1, as he should be called.
Yeah, let's hope. But I wasn't too encouraged, Zach, by what Joe Lombardi, who, when he's at the podium, I'm going to quote Mr. Producer, he's often kind of comes off a little bit like a stuffed shirt. But occasionally, Zach, you can pick through the comments and the coach speak to something meaningful, even if you do have to analyze it through multiple levels. But when he was asked today, hey, what do you got to do to get Jaleel McLaughlin and Javonte Williams going? He basically made some excuses about, I don't know if there's a specific step you can take. Quote, I mean, obviously Tyler got in there, had the big run. He's a guy that we really like. The run game is one of those things where not every run is going to be a 20-yard gain, and you stick with it thinking you know the players that you have. Just because the stats tell you they're not gaining a bunch of yards doesn't mean they've all of a sudden turned to crap. So you just keep handing them the ball and know that we'll keep getting better. The plan will keep getting better and we'll keep blocking better. Their big runs are coming. So he said more, Zach, but to me, that was kind of a telegraph of we're not going away from Pookie as our RB1. So if you're going to give Tyler Beatty some bigger bites at the apple, unfortunately, I think it's probably going to come at the expense more of Jaleel McLaughlin than it will of Javonte, at least initially.
I also think it sounded like coach speak, and it was for the most part. But there's some truth in what Lombardi said. It's still
Sure.
3 weeks into the season, and a lot of loaded boxes, Chad, because Bo Nix was so inefficient. Maybe now that he's playing more efficiently going forward, the running lanes will be easier for God willing, man. Can't get any worse.
Yes, and that theme that the Broncos established early in the game against the Bucs of the air yards being more than 5 yards per pass, like that's how you get defenses, one of many ways that you get defenses to loosen up and kind of step back and respect that you might test them beyond 5 yards. When not only the defense is able to flood the box and stop the run, but every pass is horizontal, basically. You're not challenging us as a defense to do anything but just keep one safety back there just in case. We're going to keep like 9-10 dudes in the box or whatever. That's how like ridiculous it was in those first 2 games, Zach. But at the same time, we got to remember we get to the chicken the egg kind of thing here, the catch-22 almost, which is those were 2 elite defenses the Broncos faced in the first 2 games. So did that skew our perception of what's really going on here?
And then they faced, it should have been an elite Bucs defense. They were banged up. And then you have an elite Jets defense with Quinnen Williams and everyone else in that front 7. And then you face the Chargers and the Chiefs and the Saints. This is all back to back to back to back to back. I'll say it once again. The schedule makers did the Broncos no favor. Just as another random aside, Chad.
Yes, indeed. But Ronk, brother, thank you so much. Love you, big dog. One of these days, we're going to see you at a meet and greet of this, I have no doubt. He says, great show tonight, Chad and Zach on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Go Bo Broncos. Thank you, buddy. Let me see what Mr. Producer's trying to say. I think Peyton doesn't like people calling his moves before he makes them. I'll give you 2-1, but Day gets more carries than Javonte. Again, hey, maybe, dude. I kind of hope that's how it shakes out. And that's not, Zach, me saying that I don't want Pookie to succeed. It's a contract year. He's a former second-round pick whom the team traded up to acquire. So there's some stakes there. Like, I want to see him do well. But, man, I mean, real fast here, okay? Real fast. In last week's game, Pookie got 5 carries. He gave you 12 yards. That's a 2.4 yards per carry average. Beatty gave you 70 yards on 9 carries, 7.8 yards. Okay, Jaleel, he gave you 1.4 yards per tote, 5 carries, Zach, 7 yards. All right. Well, what about week 2? What about week 2 against the Steelers? Okay, here you go. You had Javonte on 11 totes giving you 17 yards. That's a 1.5 yards per carry. Jaleel gave you 2 yards per carry. Okay. Beatty gave you 16, but in, all seriousness, he only carried the ball one time, but it was a 16-yard burst. Beautiful. All right. Week 1, last thing. Okay. Broncos, Seahawks. You had Jaleel McLaughlin with a 2.7 yards per carry average, Zach. Javonte, his season high, 2.9 yards per carry. Like when your season high is 2.9, I'm sorry, dude. The NFL, each game, Zach, is so important. You can't afford to just keep, but at the same time, teams kind of like to go with the plan they put in motion initially, and it takes a lot of like repeated failure for them to move off of that. Maybe it's been enough, and this is where we see Bidet finally get some real looks.
Well, you mentioned that he had the long scamper in the Steelers game, and then he had that 43-yard run last Sunday. He averaged, he was up to 21 miles an hour, 20.99 miles per hour. He was the second fastest ball carrier in week 3. How about when we saw him in 2022, Chad, when he was, I believe, a rookie? He came in, first NFL touch was a pass reception for a touchdown where he showed off his speed. So it's obvious he has something that Javonte doesn't, that he should get a chance to show off. And I don't really care who succeeds, because I want the Broncos to succeed. I don't really care about any one player. And for the Broncos to succeed, they need to get that running game going stat.
Well said. All right, guys, we got a few messages for you. Then we're going to dip on out, so don't leave quite yet.
Tremendous episode, as always, of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please, as you can see right there, or as you're listening to the sound of my voice, follow us on Twitter at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out MHHmerch.com and get yourself some. If you haven't done so yet, please drop us a like at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. If you're on Instagram, you can find us at Mile_High_Huddle. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please, 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 subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Much love and respect to each and every one of you for being with us tonight, and a special shout out to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters helping us literally keep the lights on. Thank you,
Michaela.
to the Duchess.
Amazing. Thank you.
With a bright red super, the Papa Bear, David McElrath, pardon me, Sam Bam, Eric Flynn, Unique Prepping, a.k.a. Smouse in the House, Zachary Smouse, George Fox, The Ronk, Cody Dubb. Much love, guys. Thank you so much. And Zach and I will see you. It's another early start on Sunday, Broncos-Jets. So we'll be going live somewhere around 2 p.m. local time, 4 p.m. Eastern. So look forward to that. Have a great start to your weekend. See you then.
Got a last-minute super here at the buzzer
Ooh.
from Cody Dubb, $20 super. Thank you. Cody Williams has obviously lost some juice, whether that's trust in that knee or the knee is just done. It's NFL, put up or shut up. Sean needs to ride the hot hand and keep Bidet in. Bo looked decent because the run worked with Bidet. You're absolutely right, Cody. That's the nature of the beast in the NFL. That's why you don't really invest a high-round pick in a running back, because you can go through them like underwear. They're interchangeable. And as the Broncos are finding out, they're a sum of all their parts. You need a lot of runners, and Javonte, Chad will just never go back to that pre-injury form. It sucks, but that's the game.
It doesn't seem like he's going to get back to that form. And, Sean Payton has traditionally deployed the running back by committee approach with a slight kind of favoritism to one guy or another, but it's pretty modest. It's just that guy ends up making so much more out of his touches. So he's perceived as the RB1, like all those years, Reggie Bush, Pierre Thomas, that morphed, Kamara and all that stuff. But the imperative, Zach, on the running back by committee is you're not only trying to distribute the touch share to, prevent wear down on the player and all that, and kind of slightly give a different style, which kind of helps mask and keep the defense guessing. But really, it's you're giving guys touches till you find the hot hand. And then when you find that hot hand, baby, you ride it. And so if Sean Payton is as smart as we think he is, he sees the forest for the trees. And as Mr. Producer said here privately, he just doesn't like people calling his shots before he makes them. So I'd be stunned, Zach, especially now that Bidet has officially been promoted to the 53. I think you're going to see his number getting called a bit more.
What it reminds me of when the Broncos had Royce Freeman as the starter and then Phillip Lindsay as the backup. It took Freeman's injury for Lindsay to start shining, and Freeman just couldn't do what Lindsay offered. So that's how I feel the Javonte Bidet dynamic is. If anything, Javonte should be that old Samaje Perine role, Chad, the third down running back pass protector, whatever, and let the younger guys get on the field.
It's just the brutal truth, dude. It's the brutal truth. But thank you, Cody Dub. Appreciate you, big dog.
That's going to do it, though, for us, guys. We will see you Sunday for the gut reaction. Have a great start to your weekend. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.